The man I was before, he's a ghost now. He wore arrogance like a well-tailored suit and believed the world owed him. Specifically that my grandmother, Eleanor Vance, owed him. She was a product of the Great Depression. Sharp, brilliant, fierce. She'd built a small empire from nothing, and I was her spark, her special boy. To my cousins, she was Grandma, a sweet old woman. To me, she was a bank vault, and I was just waiting for the key. Every visit, every bouquet of flowers, every time I fixed her Wi-Fi wasn't an act of love. It was an investment. I saw my cousins' distance as weakness. They were fools, circling a treasure they didn't have the stomach to claim. My own life was a lie built on credit cards and quiet desperation. A mid-level job, a designer apartment I couldn't afford. The stress was unreal. But that pressure didn't feel like a warning. It felt like fuel. It was proof that I deserved more, and her fortune was the cosmic correction I was due. When she died, the first thing I felt wasn't grief. It was a jolt of pure electric anticipation. The finish line was here. The real nightmare was about to begin. The day of the will reading was my coronation. I walked into that stuffy lawyer's office, my face a perfect mask of fake sympathy, while their faces were etched with real sorrow. I saw them as vultures, but it was me who was ready to feast. Her lawyer, a man who looked as old as the books on his shelves, started reading, his voice cracking like old paper. Minor, thoughtful gifts for everyone else. Then he got to me, to my grandson, Alex. I leave my personal library and the sum of $10,000. 10,000. And books. The air was sucked right out of my lungs. It was a perfectly crafted slap in the face. I looked around the room, and their quiet pity felt like a victory song. They knew. After, I cornered the lawyer, my voice shaking. Where's the rest of it? The real estate? The portfolio? He just looked at me with this weary disappointment. Alex, he said, she structured her affairs. Structured her affairs. To me, that meant one thing. War. They had manipulated her. They had cheated me. They had turned a pen into a weapon and stolen my future with a few signatures. In my mind, red flags were everywhere. This wasn't my grandmother. This was a violation. That night, lying awake, staring at the ceiling, something inside me snapped. The grief I should have felt hardened into cold, calculating rage. If the law wouldn't give me what was mine, I would burn them all to get it. Within a week, I was in a room with a shark. A lawyer named Marcus Thorne who specialized in aggressive estate litigation. I painted my story. The devoted grandson, the vulnerable matriarch, the family of circling predators. A classic case, he said, his smile a thin, cruel slash of red. He wanted a retainer that made my eyes water. I liquidated my 401k and maxed out my credit cards to pay it. It felt like buying a weapon. I ignored the calls and emails from my family. Let them squirm. I had filed the lawsuit. I was suing them all. I imagined their shock, their fear. I felt powerful. I thought I was bringing the fire. I had no idea I was walking into a fortress she had built brick by brick. The first blow came from a thin manila envelope. Discovery, they called it. Our demand for her assets came back with almost nothing. A small bank account, the contents of her house. No buildings, no businesses. I called my lawyer in a panic. They're hiding it. There was a pause. His voice had lost its swagger. There's a complication, Alex. It turned out she hadn't owned any of it. Not in her name. Every single property was held by a separate LLC. What does that mean? I demanded, a knot of dread in my stomach. It means, he said, his voice heavy, they aren't part of her estate. They belong to the companies. Suing her estate gives us no claim. My blood ran cold. She had built a wall, a legal wall. My crusade wasn't against my family, it was against a corporate structure she'd laid down years ago. Thorne told me we could try to pierce the corporate veil, but it would take time. And more money. Another $20,000. I was already in too deep. I paid it. I told myself it was just a delay. We'd find a way in. I didn't realize I was already trapped in the labyrinth she'd built. The next hammer blow had a name. The Eleanor Vance Family Limited Partnership. An FLP. What the hell is an FLP? I yelled into the phone. Thorne, sounding more like a weary professor than a shark, explained it. She had created this partnership 15 years ago. She was the general partner, with 1% control. Over the years, she had gifted the other 99%, the actual value, to the rest of the family. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins. I was never included. The implication shattered me. My lawsuit against her estate could, at best, only touch her 1% share. The other 99% was already gone. It wasn't inheritance. It was a series of gifts made over a decade. So we're fighting over 1%? I whispered. Effectively, yes, he admitted. The multi-million-dollar prize was gone. I'd spent a fortune, erased my family for a tiny slice of something I couldn't even force them to sell. The walls were closing in. But there's still the stock portfolio, Thorne said, trying to rally. The liquid cash. We just have to keep digging. Keep digging. It sounded like he was telling me to dig my own grave. But what choice did I have? The final phase of the war was the hunt for her stocks, her cash, the real money. This, I thought, had to be it. You can't hide stocks in a company. Subpoenas went out. Most came back negative. Then one hit. A letter from an investment house. The assets had been transferred. The accounts were closed. A decade ago. I remember Thorne's final call. All the bluster was gone. Alex, he said, his voice flat, it's over. 10 years ago, my grandmother had executed her final move. She created the Eleanor Vance Irrevocable Trust. An iron vault. She'd put everything in it. The stocks, the cash, even her 1% controlling interest in the partnership. When she did that, Thorne said, the words falling like dirt on a coffin, she legally gave up ownership. The assets belong to the trust, and the trust isn't part of her estate. It's designed to protect everything from exactly this kind of lawsuit. That was the knockout. The fortress was complete. The LLCs were the outer walls. The partnership was the moat. And the trust was the unbreakable keep at the center. It was a masterpiece. She hadn't just been protecting her legacy. She'd been protecting it from me. She'd used the law as a weapon against my greed. Thorne's voice broke through the haze. Alex, the estate's lawyers are talking about making you pay their legal fees. Not only had I lost, I was about to be buried under the cost of my own destruction. The war was over. The end was a quiet catastrophe. My shark of a lawyer became just another creditor. The lawsuit was withdrawn with a whimper. The financial fallout was brutal. The debt was a physical weight. I stopped sleeping. My work fell apart. I was fired. Losing the job meant losing the last shred of my curated life. The red-stamped envelopes piled up. My family maintained a dignified, crushing silence. They didn't gloat. They just erased me. I was an island, left with nothing. The final insult was watching from the sidelines as they used her money exactly as she'd intended. My cousin opened a small gallery. My uncle restored her old car. They were living better, not bigger. While I was selling my clothes for grocery money, they were honoring her memory. I lost my apartment. The bank took my car. I hit rock bottom, a place so quiet and empty, it suffocates you. Months later, in the bottom of a box, I found it. An envelope with my name in her elegant script. I tossed it aside with the book she left me. My hand shook as I opened the letter. "My dearest Alex," it began. "If you are reading this, it means you have done exactly what I feared. I'm not writing this out of anger, but out of a deep and profound sadness. I saw a fire in you, my brilliant boy. But I also saw a shadow, a hunger that could never be satisfied. You began to look at me not as your grandmother, but as an obstacle. I love our entire family. My life's work was meant to be a foundation for them, not a golden parachute for one. It was never a prize for the greediest. I knew you would try to take it all. I saw the envy in your eyes. So I spent years building a fortress. Not to punish you, Alex. To protect them from the storm I knew you would bring. I have left you my books, hoping you might find a wealth that cannot be counted. The $10,000 was a test, a chance to walk away. I prayed you would. I love you. I have always loved you. But I could not let the worst parts of you destroy the best of what our family is. I hope, one day, you find your way back. With all my love, Grandma Eleanor." The fortress wasn't malice. It was a brutal, heartbreaking act of love. She saw the predator in me, the part I refused to see in myself. She didn't raise a lamb, she raised a lion. But she also knew a lion, left unchecked, would devour everything she loved. The weight of it all finally crashed down on me. I hadn't just lost a fortune. I had squandered an inheritance of love so deep, she was willing to break my heart to save my family from me. So now, I'm here. In the after. I work in a warehouse. My life is small, the pay is low, but it's honest. I am drowning in a debt I may never repay. By every measure, I am a failure. There's no redemption here. My family has not welcomed me back. The damage is done. My greed was a disease that convinced me love was leverage. I thought I was fighting a war for money. I was fighting against my own character, and it was a battle I was always going to lose. The real inheritance was a seat at the table, the sound of her laugh, the love of my family. I traded it all for nothing. Don't make my mistake. Don't let that fire in your belly become an inferno that burns down everything you should be holding on to. You can lose a fortune and maybe earn it back. But when you burn down your world, you have to live in the ashes. And no amount of money can ever rebuild that kind of ruin. Watch this next for another jaw-dropping tale of greed, betrayal, and revenge you won't see coming.